After a while, it gets pretty boring just shooting B-roll over and over again. I don't know how many times I've shot palm trees or beaches in Southern California. Don't get me wrong, I definitely enjoy shooting B-roll. However, when you can tie that B-roll into a story, you can do so much more with your filmmaking. So in this video, I'm gonna go through 6 different steps on how you can craft a documentary specifically geared towards a YouTube audience. Because I think all of us have access to stories, even if you don't think so, there's definitely stories in your life that you can tell. And I think when you do it in a certain way, you can help inspire people to take action or make people think about a subject in a different way. All right, guys, so let's get into it. Some of the biggest YouTubers on the platform really excel because they use story. And you're gonna hear this again and again among the filmmaking community. Story is king. But what does that really mean? Essentially, you're taking the viewers on a journey, and there's something that happens at the end that transforms you or changes the way you think around something. That, in a nutshell, is a story. It's super simple. However, crafting good stories that people want to watch, it's a lot harder than it seems. What I hear a lot on YouTube is that a story is a beginning, middle, and end with a hook and, something else, but it's very different than that. When I'm coming up with my stories, the easiest way for me to start crafting something that people are going to want to watch is start with the ending. So what is the transformative experience that you're going through? Like, what is that thing at the end that's going to make you different than you were at the beginning? Now, if you start there and work your way backwards, you add all the components of storytelling, then you'll be able to have something that's going to be engaging, because the most important part is, what is that thing that transforms you or makes you think differently, and where did you start? You got to start at a place where you don't know about something or you think differently about something. You go through this journey, it transforms you. That's a story. And I think that documentary is kind of blended with vlogs in a lot of ways on this platform. So that's why I'm bringing up story, vlogging, and documentary all together. I think the strongest documentaries that you'll find are tied specifically to a creator. So you're going with this creator on a journey rather than just being a documentary about a subject, about just this thing. You're actually going with someone on an experience. And I kind of think of these as vlogumentaries. They're not really just a vlog because they tie in storytelling elements and so much of the documentary world. However, they are coming from you and your experience and your journey, so in a way it is a vlog. So it's a blend of the two. And I think when you can do this right, you really can capture an audience's attention and you can really get people interested in the stories that you want to tell. And this style of filmmaking is very different than what you're seeing on YouTube. There's definitely creators out there who are really harnessing this ability to craft a story that really involves the creator, you. But there's also just a lot of content out there that's tutorials, reviews, all of that kind of content, which is great. There's a place for every style of content. However, I think the way that things are shifting in the YouTube algorithm and the way that people are engaging with YouTube, if you can craft a story that grabs the attention of your viewers, that video is going to take off. It's going to get suggested to more people because a lot of times these stories are engaging from beginning to end. It drives up your watch time. It drives up your audience view duration. Pair that with a strong title and thumbnail and boom, you have a viral video. So let's break down the 6 things that I think you need to be able to craft a documentary for YouTube or a vlogumentary. So number 1 is the interviews. Now, when you're shooting this style of content, you really want to grab interviews from the different people that you're interacting with on the go. So when I recently went up to Belcampo and shot a film about regenerative farming, everyone that I talked to, I tried to grab little sound bites from. So I would stop someone, ask them a few questions to try to explain what's going on, and then those interviews help tie the story together along with the other pieces that we're going to talk about in this video. Now, interviews are super important, and a lot of times I overshoot in terms of my interview. I ask a few different questions, and I might just use 1 or 2 sound bites because when you get back into the edit bay and you're editing documentary style content, a lot of times that you'll find that you want to shoot more than you actually are going to use. You really want to overshoot when it comes to documentary because there's always going to be these little things that you'll use from this interview or this set of B-roll, whatever it is that you're grabbing. If you have more, you're going to end up using it. For example, last December when I went to Thailand with Levi, we were shooting a documentary about an elephant sanctuary. And when we were walking through the jungle with the different people that worked at the sanctuary, we'd be asking them questions. And we always had the cameras rolling, whether it's down by our side, just grab quick, kind of like rough, like next to us. There's a lot of times where we would have just cameras rolling. The footage wouldn't be that good, but if you're capturing the sound bites, that's more important. You really want to get specific sound bites that are going to help tell your story. And a lot of times this is said off camera, or it's said when people aren't doing the sit-down interview. You can definitely do sit-down interviews and ask a series of questions, but a lot of times the best moments are when you're not in a formal interview setting. A lot of times it's like on the go, you'll end up capturing these moments of people just being genuine. And it's much more engaging than having someone sitting there and just rattling off facts. So when it comes to shooting your interviews, think of how you can do them kind of on the go. Think of how you can do them creatively so they're not always just a sit-down interview. That's a very traditional way to shoot documentary, and yeah, there's going to be moments when you want to grab interviews like that. However, start thinking of ways that you can just grab sound bites when you're in the process of doing the thing that you're shooting a film about. Now, one more thing about interviews, because this is a really key component of your A-roll. When you're crafting your interviews, really pay attention to the person that you're interviewing. So you might have a set of questions, maybe you have 5 questions that you want to ask somebody, but really listen to what they're saying and start bouncing questions off them as they're talking. So you might be coming up with a whole new direction as they're delivering you an answer, and follow that thread, pull on that thread, and go down a different path. I don't know how many times I've come into an interview where I've had like 8 questions, and then I end up doing 2, and then the interview goes off in a completely different direction because what the person was saying in that interview became much more compelling than the questions that I had asked. And this is also why I scratch so much when I'm editing, because a lot of times when you're doing an interview, you just have all of this content, and you end up only needing this one little section. Now, the second thing you need when you're shooting a documentary is B-roll. This is the fun stuff. This is like all the cool footage, the gimbal work, the drone work. You need all of that. It's all good. But when you're shooting your B-roll, you want to think, how does this relate to the story? Is this something that is going to tie directly to the A-roll I'm capturing? Or is this just like random B-roll that doesn't even make sense? So think through your story, think through what the progression is from beginning to end, and think, how can I shoot B-roll that's going to fit in that sequence? One thing with B-roll is that you really want to shoot transitional B-roll. And so when I'm shooting these projects, I'll set the camera down on a tripod and walk through a scene, or I'll have my car drive through a scene, or I'll grab some shots of me going from one place to the next, just because that footage ends up becoming so useful. When you sit down to edit and you're working with your A-roll, having those transition scenes gives you an ability to tie things together. And a lot of times those are good spots to lay over voiceover to kind of talk through how you transition from point A to point B. Just getting that extra B-roll of your subject in different scenes, whether that's you or some other people that are involved in the story that you're telling, just getting those moments is super important. And trust me, you'll use a lot of that in the edit. So the third thing that you're going to need when you're shooting a documentary is voiceover. And I'll come up with some voiceover before, and I'll also come up with some during, and I'll come up with some when I'm sitting here editing as well. I don't think there's a right way to do voiceover. I think it comes down to your story. So when I was crafting this farm documentary, I had a few moments that I scripted out before I even left to go shoot at the farm. The whole intro sequence where I'm at home, where I'm talking about the setup for the story, I actually had all of that scripted out, and I recorded some scratch voiceover. So when I was up at the farm shooting, I had that in my timeline. It wasn't good voiceover, but it just kind of helped me craft my story, and it gave me something to work off of as I was pulling the pieces together. So there's times where I'll have voiceover before I start, but when I'm editing, this is when I find that I'm able to craft my voiceover and really come up with the scripts that tie the pieces together. So as I'm watching my A-roll and cutting it together, I'll realize that, yeah, I need some voiceover here to explain this, or I need some voiceover to transition this, or I need some voiceover here to engage with the audience in a different way that you're not getting from the A-roll I shot in the project. Voiceover can be used in a lot of different ways, And I think it's a great tool to add into your A-roll to go back and forth. And it also is that element that's really going to connect your audience with you. The whole idea of shooting documentary or vlogumentaries here on YouTube is to have the audience be connected with you on the other side of the camera. You want to take them on a journey and you want the person to be in your shoes. So the more elements that you can use to connect to your audience, the more that your audience is going to become engaged and want to see what happens next. Now, the fourth thing you're going to need for these documentaries is music. And I think music is super impactful. It's a huge component to be able to drive a feeling or be able to craft an emotion from a scene. So how I work is as I'm writing my script and creating my outline, I'll find different tracks that I feel like tie into the emotion of what I'm trying to convey. And I'll bring those with me when I'm shooting just to see if my B-roll is matching up to what the kind of music is that I was going for. Obviously, everything's fluctuating. When you're creating, things change, things evolve, but you'll find different types of music that really fit the style of content that you produce. So I use Epidemic Sound for all my music. I'll go on the website, I'll start browsing through, I'll pick out songs, and I'll use those as I'm crafting my story to set the emotion. Now, a big thing that I do is when I get into the edit bay, when I'm here working on my cut, I drop the music in pretty early. So I'll use the music, and I found that for me, music is a huge element to drive my films. And so I like to bring my music in early, play around with it. I'll switch tracks out as I go, but a good way that I've found to edit is pacing my project with music as I'm doing the initial cut. It really helps tie everything together, and then I'm able to move on the edit a lot faster. One thing when it comes to YouTube in general is just speed. Like, you don't want to spend months and months on one of these projects. You know, this video I shot in 4 days. I came back to my edit bay, I edited it in 2. I was done within a week, and I had a pretty powerful documentary that looks much more involved than, you know, shooting one of these videos. Like a tutorial video is a lot different than, say, a full-fledged documentary, vlogumentary. I don't know which term I should use. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Do you think these are vlogumentaries or documentaries? Do you think I'm crazy for talking about vlogumentaries? All right, the next thing you're gonna need when you're shooting these types of projects is natural sounds. So when you're out shooting in the different environments that you're shooting in, you wanna capture the sounds of what is there. You're not always gonna use music under everything you do, and sound really sets the tone for a location or really draws the viewer in. So you wanna be thinking sound design, and when you're in an environment, if you have a rushing waterfall, you wanna capture the sounds of that waterfall. If you're in a forest, you wanna capture the sounds of that specific forest. Spend a little bit of time and capture some sounds within the scenes. Whenever you shoot an interview, always capture like 30 seconds of sound in that space without anyone talking. Because as you cut your interviews together, you want to make it sound completely seamless. And to do that, you'll use that 30 seconds of empty sound of just background noise, and you'll lay it under your edit. And that helps allow you to make the interview sound seamless, even if you're cutting sections from the beginning and sections from the end and putting it together, you know, so it's much quicker. Now, the sixth thing you need for these films is you. And this is so different than traditional documentary filmmaking, because traditional documentary filmmaking, you might be making a project about a subject, someone else. So they're gonna be the focus of everything that you do, the B-roll, the A-roll, but you as the filmmaker might not be involved. But I think on YouTube, crafting stories that are tied to the creator are much more engaging, especially the more that you build a channel. So as your channel grows, your audience is gonna be connected to you. So they want to see videos from you, and if you're taking people on a journey, it's much more engaging than if you're shooting just another subject. And this is where I think YouTubers really excel. Like, I've seen some pretty amazing filmmakers try to post these documentary shorts on YouTube, and they just tank. Like, they just don't do that well because there's no real grounding element on their channel. Like, they might be an awesome filmmaker, and their films might be amazing. However, when you go from film to film, they're completely unique and different. There's no thread tying it all together. And I think vloggers really discovered this ability to connect with an audience on the other side of the camera. When you're watching a vlog, you're watching someone else's life. You're really diving into that person, and you're going along with them for the good, the bad, and everything else in between. You're along on that journey. So if you want to craft documentary pieces for YouTube, That's the kind of approach that you want to take. You want to take the viewers on the journey with you, and you want to be that thread from video to video. So some things you want to think about when you're out shooting these types of projects is make sure that you get elements of you talking to camera, explaining what's going on. I don't know how many times I've missed moments because I just didn't grab a quick shot of me talking to camera about what I was doing at that moment, and then I have to go back and do it in voiceover. It's much more impactful if you are there in the moment and you're on camera talking, or it's an exchange between you and someone else versus trying to do it in voiceover. I think that voiceover is great, but I also don't want to rely on voiceover to tell the story. I would rather take someone on the journey and have the viewer experience all the beats of the story as I'm experiencing them. So just as I was talking about B-roll having transitional moments where you want to capture going from scene A to scene B, you also want to do this with you. So in between the different story beats that you're going on, you want to make sure to capture you talking about what's going on, explaining what's going on, talking about your fears, your frustrations, something you're excited about. Like really just put a lot onto camera and talk about your feelings and how everything is going at that moment, because you're taking your audience on a journey, and those might be moments that you really want to use to be able to transition to the next scene, rather than just having B-roll with some voiceover. So for example, in this regenerative farm documentary, I had a lot of these moments, and some of them became key moments that I used to tell my story. And one thing that's really helped me to know when to shoot these sections is to lay out my story as I'm actually shooting the story. And I think that's going to have to be in another video. I'll break down my process of being able to lay out all the story beats in a visual style and be able to see where things are missing. So guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on making a documentary or a vlogumentary, and I'll put a link down below in the description to my documentary on regenerative farming, and I highly suggest you check that out. And guys, I'll be doing more videos on the subject, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. And that's it. I'll see you on the next one. Also, if you want to see how to craft a story in a vlog, which is similar, check this out right here. It's a video I did. It's an hour-long masterclass here on YouTube. I highly suggest you check that out.